Hello everyone, this is G and I'm back with another video. I hope everybody's having a good day. My Friday's been quiet thus far. It's a little after 10 a.m. here in New York City, where the grass is green and some of the boys are pretty. But anyway, it's a pretty sunny day out. I have a few things to do today. I have to go be a responsible adult for once in life. So I don't know how many videos that I'm going to get to today because indeed I am a busy woman and I haven't got all day. But unlike Ursula from the Little Mermaid, I don't want your voice. Though you're always welcome to express yourself in the comments, all I'm asking for is for a bit of your time and an open mind as I cover this article from Entertainment Weekly. Now, I know some other people have covered it because it's a part of the larger He-Man, Teela, Revelations drama, which I do have some more thoughts on and probably will be making a few more videos about, in particular, Teela's design and this idea that her design was based around, very muscular women. Um, I grew up watching muscular women all the time in pro wrestling. That is not a muscular woman's body, but that's a video and a topic, or rather, that's a topic for another video. I want to briefly cover this article because I am most offended by this article because what Sarah Michelle Gellar says in it is simply untrue and simply factually, objectively untrue. And you'll see what I mean. Now, I want to be clear. She has every right to her opinions, and there's nothing wrong with the fact that, given that she's part of the new show, she has to promote it, right? She has to make it look good, especially since her voice acting in that, which I'm not a big fan of, and I think her voice is pitched way too high, right? When she's Teela, there's this scene where she's like, "For Eternia," like literally sounding just like that, right? And that's obviously me intentionally sounding very, very high because my voice, right, is not naturally that high. So, but I don't blame the voice acting issues on Sarah. That's not her fault, right? That's on the casting director. That's on the voice director, and all that. Because I know that she can be a decent voice actress because she played the seventh sister, who was a villainess, interestingly enough, in Rebels. So it could be a case of her getting bad direction or being miscast. Probably someone like Jennifer Hale or Mary Elizabeth McGlynn probably should have got the role for Teela. But let's be honest, they were going to go with the big name, or at least for this big name actress, because she's a name that people even outside of He-Man or outside of what's the word I'm looking for? Outside of cartoons would know because she's most famous for being Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Right? So the voice acting issues I don't blame on her. Right? Besides, giving a warrior a very chirpy voice is something you can very rarely get away with. Just because Ashley Eckstein can do it with Ahsoka Tano doesn't mean that other people can. But that's not her fault. This article, though, the stuff she says in it, that is her fault because this is a lie. It's not just a lie on He-Man, it's a lie on boys' cartoons or action cartoons of the 80s and 90s in general. So let's get into it. Right, so it says here Sarah Michelle Gellar says women were afterthoughts in Masters of the Universe, but sequel has so much more. Are we going to be singing "Part of Your World"? Is that it? Do we need to bring in Jodie Benson as Ariel from The Little Mermaid? But anyway, it says here the Buffy star says Masters of the Universe Revelation has the kind of roles you dream about playing. Now this article is a few days old. It's from the 22nd. Today's the 30th, so it's been a few days, right? So there's a lot that has happened since this article came out, right? But anyway, let's continue. Scroll, damn it. So it says here Sarah Michelle Gellar was not a fan of Masters of the Universe growing up. Well, neither was I, but I actually have watched a few episodes because of all the drama, and I gotta say, the show's a bop. I will admit, not as action oriented as I would like, but to be fair, it's from like the early and mid 80s. I grew up in the 1990s, so the standards in action and cartoons changed a lot within that like 9, 10 year period. So it's not really fair to compare the two. It's like being upset that Super Mario Brothers only has 8-bit graphics. If you compare it to the modern day, right? It's a product of its time. If the original He-Man series and series like She-Ra and all that are guilty of anything, it's just being products of their time, and that's not something to be guilty of or feel guilty about. Things should advance and improve as time goes on. But anyway, it says here Castle Grayskull seemed cool. Oh, it's a crazy cool design. Giant skull castle. It's awesome looking. But there was nothing for her to relate to in the original 80s cartoon. Okay, that happens, right? I couldn't relate to anything in Gem and the Holograms. Doesn't make it a bad cartoon, it just wasn't for me. But anyway, here's the part where she like pisses me off, right? It says here there was no way into that story for me growing up because all of the women were afterthought characters. They didn't hold power, or rather, they didn't hold the power, and the storylines weren't about them. The Buffy the Vampire Slayer actress explains to EW. Okay, first of all, she's simply objectively wrong here, if not flat out lying. I was literally watching an episode yesterday, or listening to it rather, because I was at the office. But there was a video, and there's like a whole like He-Man channel, like a classic He-Man channel, that shows the episodes. And the episodes are about 20 minutes long, so they're about as long as the Revelation episodes are. But the episode was literally called Queen Marlena, or Marlena. I don't know how you say it. But Queen Marlena the pilot. It's the Queen's focus episode. There was a focus episode on the Queen, on He-Man's mother, talking about how she had been a pilot. I will admit the outfit they gave her for the pilot part, I'm like, that's not a flight suit. That's a space suit for astronauts. But whatever. But this woman, here's a sort of summary of what happens. The heroes get captured. The king gets captured. He-Man gets captured. Teela gets captured. Man at Arms gets captured. Right. So your standard good guy team, even the sorceress, gets captured. So guess who has to save them? Queen Marlena. Right. And guess what? For a woman who was a pilot, the queen becomes a warrior queen. She never loses her cool. She never screams. She never cries. She never goes, oh, woe is me. This woman put on her crown, grabbed her sword in a symbolic sense, and said, we are going to save everybody. There's actually a scene where a knight, or I guess whatever, they're soldiers, right? They all have the same design as man at arms, right? But one of the soldiers, who interestingly enough is African American in this case, one of the soldiers comes to her and tells her, "Look, the king has been captured. He-Man has been captured. We don't know what to do." She's like, "Marshal all of our forces. We're gonna attack Skeletor." And even the knight's like, "What?" She's like, "We're gonna attack Skeletor, specifically because Skeletor would never expect me to attack." And that's exactly what they do. There's even this really cool scene where all of the ships are like taking formation and get ready to fly. So one of the knights is like, "But we don't have a lead ship. Who was our lead ship? Right? Who was our leader?" So the queen busts out her old ship, literally uses a laser on the ship to basically like break the glass or whatever it is. That's like keeping her ship docked, and she flies out and leads them. She is leading these soldiers, these men, into battle. And it's a really, really good episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So that right there, that one episode, right? Never mind, the whole thing about She-Ra and how, if I remember correctly from what I've heard, it's that Teela became so popular that they created She-Ra as basically a spin-off because they couldn't take Teela out of He-Man and give her own series, so they did their best they could by creating She-Ra, right? Because Teela had become so popular. But Just that episode alone totally debunks her argument here. She didn't hold the power. She is the power in that episode. And the storylines weren't about them. That was literally the Queen's focus episode. This is what I do not like about just modern day entertainment. Again, I get it. She has to promote the show, she has to make people interested. But telling lies like this, right? Stating blatant falsehoods that can easily be disproven only upset the fan base. And again, I just happened across this episode. Imagine for those who actually literally grew up with this and who remember it and who going like, no, that is not what happened. The women were not sidelined. You're playing the female lead. What the hell are you talking about? Right? But anyway, continuing. Characters like Evil Lynn, a sorceress villainess, were cool, but even she was not always there. Okay, and she explained. Teela, allied to Prince Adam, wasn't even in on the secret that her best friend was secretly the all-powerful hero of Eternia known as He-Man. Well, here's the thing. Most people were not. The only ones who seem to be aware are the sorceress, Man-at-Arms, and interestingly, the Queen herself. Because at the end of her focus episode, Adam asked her, why did you free me first? And she pretty much says, without saying, oh, son, I know who you are. A mother always knows. Right, so they seem to be about the only ones of the main cast who actually know his secret. So it's not as if everybody else knows, but Teela doesn't. There are plenty of people who are not in the know about it. So it's not as if he's just keeping it from her. He's keeping it from many people, including his own father. You would think his dad might want to know, but for whatever reason, I don't quite know the history, so I don't know the reasoning behind it. But there are only a few people, two of them female in the sorceress and his mother, the queen, know that he's He-Man. So this wasn't about excluding Teela when other people, including his own dad, are excluded. And honestly, especially if you're looking at the 1980s design, where literally the difference between He-Man and Adam is how they dress, you basically have a Lois Lane Superman situation. So you could say the same thing about Lois. How the hell does she not realize that Clark and Superman are the same person when they look exactly the same, with the exception of a of curly hair, hair curl, glasses, and different clothes? Right? Yet you aren't attacking Lois Lane here. You aren't questioning her importance to the Superman uh, uh, franchise, despite her suffering from the same damn problem. But let's continue, right? So then she says about Teela. She was in every episode and not even really part of the journey story then. That's a flat out lie. But anyway, Masters of the Universe Revelation, the new sequel series uh, bleh, new sequel series to that original cartoon, coming to Netflix this Friday. Well, we all know now what happened and how it was received. Not well, right? It says here that it's different. Yeah, but it's different in a negative way, which is the problem. Scroll, damn you, scroll. So it says here, oh, I think what is so great about this is that there are characters for everybody, and you can relate to different parts of each of the characters, even Adam. Well, here's the thing, honey. From what I've seen of the show, there's no one for me to relate to. The only character that I maybe, if not could have related to, but at least would have found admirable, right? Outside of perhaps Adam himself, interestingly enough, would have been Teela. If you'd kept Teela to the heroic warrior she was supposed to be. I like the stoic warrior type. I'm a Risa Hawkeye fan. All you literally had to do was just leave the character alone, but you couldn't, could you? But anyway, says it was sort of there in the original. There was no depth to him. Oh, That's insulting. That's insulting. There was plenty of depth to him. There was plenty of depth. There were plenty of episodes. Hell, there are episodes where he literally saves Skeletor, right? He was shown to be a heroic individual. You again, honey, you are telling tall tales. Why must you lie about the past just to prop up the show you're a part of now, damn near 40 years later? Now you get what it's like to be these two people and keep these secrets. There's just so much more to enjoy. Is there? Is there? Because I'm not sure too many people enjoy it. Sure, there are a few people who like the show, and that's fine, but they seem to be in the minority. The majority seem to be rip roaring mad, and I can't exactly blame them. And it says, headed by Kevin Smith and boasting an all star voice cast. Revelation picks up directly after the events of the original. Are we sure? Because first they say it's a direct sequel, then it's a spiritual successor type show, and now it's a direct sequel again. Y'all can't seem to keep your story straight. But either way, I think most fans would say that it is Masters of the Universe in name only, just like the She-Ra reboot was in name only. This seems to be another in name only bastardization of a beloved property from the 80s. But anyway, right, it says here Revelation picks up directly after the events of the original when a world shattering event threatens all of Eternia. We all know what that is now, right? Right. Skeletor winning, the death of He Man, all that other stuff, the splitting of the sword, right? It says here Mark Hamill voices Skeletor, Chris Wood voices He Man, and Lena Headey voices Evil Lyn, but Gellar's Teela takes a prominent role in this next chapter. Yeah, that's kind of the problem. But anyway, it says, what hooked me was the story, honestly. It was just the writing. Oh, I call all sorts of BS on that. I can notice so many issues with the writing, namely Teela's characterization, which is totally off for the type of character she's supposed to be. But anyway, it says, Gellar remembers of joining the cast. These are characters you dream about playing and emotions you dream about experiencing. And then I heard Kevin's passion. I'm a Kevin fan. Ah. So right there, your viewpoint is compromised. I see. Right? I have to say, I love working with him as a director, just the way he watches his performances. I really got to know, even just on Zoom, when he was really excited about something or when something didn't work. It was almost like he had nowhere to hide when you're on Zoom just because he's just this big face right there. Well, first of all, as anybody who's used Zoom knows, you can easily just not turn your camera on if you don't want your face to be seen. But more importantly, let's be honest here. As I said in another video, this Revelations, however the second half turns out, is pretty much irrelevant now because Kevin Smith, and especially not just the way the product turned out, but just the way Kevin responded to the backlash, he's burned all of his goodwill with the nerd community because the nerd community trusted him because they figured he's a fellow nerd, right? Apparently, from what I've been seeing online, he's the same guy who went on a rant and put it on DVD and about how Tim Burton didn't understand Batman back when he did the 1989 Batman film. A personal favorite of mine. To be honest, I love that movie. I watch it every single time it comes on TV. Right, but because of that, right, because he had this dedicated following in nerddom. Now, I personally have never been a fan of his work. I'm not a big fan of, like, the whole young male stoner comedy type thing, but I get there's an audience for it. But these people who thought he was one of us, right, who thought that he was a fellow nerd, right, a fellow geek, trusted him, thinking that he would stay, if not 100%, the beat for beat, right, close to the story, that he would at the very least stay true to the spirit of He-Man and the spirit of Masters of the Universe and the various characters. Hey,
Where's the big blue bag?
1 second. As I was saying, that was my brother just now. He comes by to help us out a little bit over here about once a week. But anyway, as I was saying, Jesus, now I lost my place. Oh, yes. Right? People trusted Kev because they thought Kevin was a fan. And now he's betrayed them. So he's burnt, I should say, all of that goodwill that he would have had um, previously with the fans. It's all gone now. It's all over now, right? I highly doubt he would have to create like the perfect second part to win fans back, and I'm not sure he is a good enough creator, a good enough storyteller to do that, right? But let's continue. Let's continue. Come on. So it says here, Gellar began recording her voice role of Teela in a studio before the pandemic. She only logged in one session before COVID-19 prompted lockdowns. The actress was still able to go into the studio for a while with limited personnel spelled with one L typically, but she soon had to transition to home. Luckily, her husband, Freddie Prinze Jr., the same dude who, curses out Star Wars fans for not agreeing with him on whether or not Star Wars is for kids. That guy, right? Who had done a voice role in Star Wars Rebels and The Bad Batch, had al- was already had a was already had a voiceover space partially built. That's just a weird written sentence. Though Geller says it's still tricky when her kids are at home studying for school and she's off screaming and fighting Skeletor in the other room. Okay. The fans of the days of Buffy will no doubt draw comparisons between the Slayer and Geller's new warrior woman role. While Buffy was always being told that she had the power and it was about her learning what that journey of acceptance was like, the star said, nobody gave Teela any power. Again, inaccurate, factually inaccurate. Teela is more or less Adam's bodyguard. She is the captain of the guard. Right? Even in the 80s cartoon, she's the captain of the guard and she's tasked with teaching Adam, right, martial arts and whatnot, teaching him all that and protecting him, right? She's basically his first line of defense, right? Of course, she doesn't know he's He-Man, but still, she has a great amount of power being that close to the prince and by extension, the royal family. She has plenty of power, right? So again, this is simply factually inaccurate. She even has a very positive relationship with the queen herself. So how in the world can you say that she didn't have power? You see, if I wanted to, I could, diss the whole Buffy the Vampire Slayer show. I could talk about how it was originally based on a trash movie from the early 1990s and, how it was made by, or at least made in part by a supposed feminist and Joss Whedon, and yet he's turned out to be probably the most problematic element of the show, and things like, how problematic it can be from a feminist point of view. In particular, Buffy's interactions with men, in particular Angel and Spike, and how, especially in Angel's case, it could be argued that she more or less corrupted him because the moment they made love, she basically unleashed the seal of evil on him, right? Because the thing was that if he experienced a perfect moment of happiness, he would lose his soul. And what happened? They had sex. He experienced that moment of happiness, and he therefore lost his soul and became angelus, right? So yeah, I mean, I could certainly make a hot take, right? That Buffy fans would take issue with, but generally speaking, I'm not the type to diss a show just because I don't like it. I tend to let it be, and I acknowledge the fact that there are fans of it, even if I am not one of them. I try to be nice. Anyway, it says here, it was about her learning that she always had the power within her, which is something that's much more relatable to the average person because the average person is not a superhero. But not every superhero needs to be relatable, and Teela, being the captain of the freaking guard, is not someone who needs to learn that she has the power within. That works for a story like, say, the 1998 version of Mulan because she's a normal girl going off into this extraordinary situation, in this case, going to war, right? And she's at first just physically not ready for all this, and then she, tries the arrow challenge one more time, and then after that, she evolves to be this very intelligent, if reckless, warrior, right? So that might work again for a Mulan type story of a normal person going into an extraordinary situation and becoming a hero of legend. But Teela more or less would already be a hero of legend in the series. She's already a person of incredible, I would say in a sense, privilege, right? Because she's the captain of the guard. Because even in the new show, it opens up with her being appointed as the new man at arms. You don't get into those positions without experience. She's not she's not in this sort of like beginner stage or learner stage. She's already pretty advanced. So this comparison or this justification does not work. But anyway, it says here, Gellar continues, that journey, I think, was really exciting. I agree, in Mulan, right? She also just looks so badass. Oh, no, she doesn't, honey. No, she doesn't. That's another huge problem. But it says here, just the haircut, the undercut, the whole vibe excited me. Because let's be honest, if that was live action, no one's looking at that character going, oh, that's Sarah. That's who we need in that role. That's the truth. Yeah, nobody would cast Sarah Michelle Gellar visually for that role. But that hair is not something any self respecting warrior would wear. Various warrior cultures, in particular Asian ones and Native Americans, but you have Native Americans, you have Vikings, you have the Japanese, you have the Chinese, and many others. A warrior's culture like that would have demanded that the warriors keep their hair long. That's the thing. You would have been made to keep your hair long, and you sure as hell wouldn't have done that whole undercut side swipe thing. You may have worn a mohawk, because that was an actual warrior style from the Mohawk Indians, so you might do that. But no, that undercut thing has nothing to do and has no place in warrior culture and the various styles and fashions that people in those cultures wore for war, right? It would have been long hair, it would have been braids, it would have been ponytails or top notch or keeping your hair up or something, but it would not have been that undercut. That undercut comes from the 70s and 80s punk movement. And the literal point of the punk movement, from its sound to its aesthetics, was to be as aggressive and as offensive and repulsive as possible. You should not want to repel people from your female lead who's supposed to be on the good guy side, who's supposed to be a heroic warrior princess. Do you guys know anything about anything? And then it says, oh, that's Sarah. That's who we need in that role. That's the kind of role I would never get the chance to play live. That may be the only truthful thing she actually said in this article. Because, yeah, no one's going to look at her and see Teela. Same way that no one looks at Ashley Eckstein and sees Ahsoka. Which is why voice acting is good. You get to play roles that would be totally outside of yourself if you were being casted on your looks, on your visuals, which is how most acting roles go, right? So yeah, that's about the only thing she's right about here. Now here's the thing. As I've said previously, she has every right to promote the show. She doesn't have a right to lie about the old show just to build up the new one. another thing is that while I may not have grown up with He-Man and all that, I did grow up watching a lot of, boys' cartoons, you could say, right? The action cartoons of the 1990s. And I remember hearing this argument even as a little kid. I didn't quite understand it back then, of course, being so young. But I remember hearing as a little kid that shows like Ninja Turtles, and although that was more late '80s, but Ninja Turtles and stuff like Power Rangers or whatnot didn't do the women justice because either the women were like, if there weren't as many women on the team as there were men, right? Usually the men, there were just more guys on the teams than women, or that because they weren't, lead female characters, right? A cartoon, for example, like the Carmen Sandiego cartoon, would have been seen as progressive because its female lead was a Latina, right? But Power Rangers, despite being adapted from the Japanese Super Sentai, is not because you have Trini and you have Kimberly, and Kimberly is like at least at first she's very much the stereotypical California girl cheerleader gymnast type. But as I've grown older, I have looked back on these shows and I'm still a big fan of them, and I completely disagree with this idea that just because there may not have been a lot of women, that the women were not shown respect, or that they weren't treated well. Now, maybe there were issues behind the scenes, not saying that didn't happen, but all I can evaluate at the end is the final product. And the final product typically would show these women being just as important as the men, whether they're helping the guys or whether they're going on their own adventures, whether they're solving problems that the men can't solve because the guys are just thinking, I'll just punch it, I'll just use force, and the women are like, well, here's another way. Let's try something else, right? And their way works. So this idea that boys' cartoons somehow did not show respect toward females is just completely erroneous and incredibly insulting. And that's why I fear for certain shows like Gargoyles being rebooted anytime soon. Because could you imagine what a Gargoyles reboot would look like in the modern day? They would butcher Elisa. She's not going to be a cop anymore. She's going to quit and protest. They're going to totally bastardize her personality. She's not going to be that tough but fair uh, action cop or action detective that she plays. Right? They're going to make Goliath the example of toxic masculinity. You might as well just get uh, Thalog now, right? They're going to make Demona the misunderstood hero, right? They would make Xanatos a total simp for Fox, right? He and Fox wouldn't work together or have a equal standing in their relationship, which is shown in the original show. No, no. She would definitely run Xanatos Enterprises. They would totally make Xanatos look like a fool or a cad, right? They would definitely do things like, well, it's Fox who really made all of the technological stuff, like the gargoyle themed battle suit and all that, and Thanatos is just taking credit. They would bastardize everything that made gargoyles gargoyles, and this is why I don't want to see gargoyles come back at this time. If you cannot respect the original property, then